Welcome back. All right, so I wanted to take a look at one team from each division that has had maybe an unexpectedly strong start to the season and ask the question of which one of these teams is most likely to continue this run, to be able to keep winning games and staying in the playoffs, potentially winning their division, that kind of thing. So we have a Metro team. I have Pittsburgh. From the Atlantic, I have Detroit. From the Central, of course, Utah. And from the Pacific, Seattle, who I do think get underrated, but I can talk about why, and I understand why there's people who do not have a lot of faith in Seattle of these four teams. But let's go ahead and start with Pittsburgh. We'll start on the left-hand side. Easier to go from left to right. The last time that Pittsburgh made the playoffs was 2022. So they're trying to make the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. Their 6-2-1 start is much better than last season where they started 3-5-1. I always find it interesting because people look at the standings in October and they go, yeah, wake me up in April. The reality is that teams that get off to good starts very often make the playoffs, and teams that get off to slow starts very often miss the playoffs. There are exceptions, but not a lot of them. And so getting off to a 6-2-1 start's good. So looking at their record, they're 2-1-1 at home, they're 4-1 on the road. Strong road record. Their home record a little bit spottier, but just the 4 games played, so smaller sample size. I think the fact they're 4-1 on the road bodes well for them. Plus, they've scored 3.56 goals per game. They've allowed 2.56. So the stats are good for Pittsburgh. Their power play's fantastic at 33.33%. I don't think they stay there. 77.8% on the penalty kill. I think they want that closer to 80%. But the added number is 111.1, I do believe, by my own math here. And that's elite, right? That's really, really strong. Looking at their top scorers, Malkin, 9 games, 2 goals, 12 assists, 14 points. He is a big part of the reason why Pittsburgh's off to the strong start they are. Malkin has been rejuvenated this year. Maybe it's final year of his contract. All this talk about whether or not he's going to be traded or what's going to happen. And so he's putting his best on the ice. Crosby, 9 games, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points. We know what Crosby can do. Would any of us be surprised if he hit 100 points this year as he approaches 40? Not really, no. Brazo, 9 games, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. Probably not something you want to wager on that Brazo's going to stay at a point per game over the whole season. Brazo's a very good player. I like Brazo a lot. I liked him in Boston, but he is streaky. This is the best streak he's had in his career that I know of, but I do expect his scoring to slow down at least a bit. Mantha has had a really strong start. 9 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. The trick with Mantha is staying healthy, him staying in the lineup, right? He had a good year last year with Calgary for what he played, but he did end up getting injured. Now, Raquel's on the board. And since I put this board together, it's come out that Raquel has had to have surgery. And so he's going to be out for the next 6 weeks, I believe. 9 games for Raquel, so he'd played every game up until this point. 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. They're going to have to find the offense. Now, Kindle might be one of those guys who ends up providing them the offense, right? He's looked very good for a young player. And then we get into the goaltending. The goaltending's been really, really strong. And it's understandable this would have been a question mark before the season started. Jari had a tough year last year, and Shilovs had a good year in the AHL, but his NHL numbers were poor. And there was no guarantee that Shilovs at the NHL level would be as good as he's been. So Jari, 3-1 with a .921 save percentage. He has saved 4.8 goals above expected. So goals saved above expected being that, all of these high danger, medium danger, all these things put together. How many goals would you expect the average goaltender to allow? He has saved 4.8 goals above expected already. Shilovs also 3-1, .914 save percentage. He has saved 3.5 goals above expected. And last year, Shilovs had one of the worst numbers in the National Hockey League, especially per 60 minutes played. So really strong turnaround for Shilovs. Pittsburgh's got to be happy with that trade. And for Vancouver, the options were to either trade Shilovs or waive him and lose him for nothing. Now, the upcoming schedule I wanted to focus on for each team. And for Pittsburgh, they are at home against St. Louis on Monday. Then they go on the road. They're at Philadelphia, at Minnesota, at Winnipeg, and at Toronto. And that's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday. So it's a game every other day. After the Tuesday game is actually the second half of a back-to-back. 7 of their remaining 10 games in November are at home. It is a tough schedule, but if you look at that, Philadelphia should be a winnable game for them if they're as good as their 6-2-1 record. Minnesota should be winnable considering how Minnesota's been playing. Toronto should probably be winnable as well. Toronto sitting at a 500 record currently. PDO, which is the combination of shooting percentage and save percentage, always something to watch. And 3 of these 4 teams are getting really good PDO numbers. The Penguins being one of them. 102.65 is the number. They are 6th in the NHL in PDO. And it's notable because during the season, it'll usually end up closer to 100. So for the teams that are at 102 and higher, it'll usually settle back to something a little closer to 100. It doesn't necessarily, but it can. Their goal differential above expected. So this is the same idea as with goaltenders, goals saved above expected. This is looking at goals for they should generate, goals against they should allow. They are currently sitting at 5.08 goals above expected, which is 6th overall in the NHL. So there's some good luck involved. There's some smart shot selection involved and some big saves. Obviously, if they keep getting that, Pittsburgh has a very good chance. So I would say Pittsburgh does have a good chance of keeping this up. The road trip is going to tell us a lot. Then you go to Detroit. Detroit hasn't made the playoffs since 2016. It has been a long time since we saw the Detroit Red Wings in the playoffs. They are 6-3 so far this season. They were 4-1 to start last season. So obviously they missed the playoffs last year, and that start wasn't easy. So this year at home, they're 5-1, excellent home record. On the road, they've only played 3 games, and they're 1-2. So that's where things get a little tricky. Is they're clearly very good at home. You've got to be good on the road as well. Ask Columbus. Columbus last year was excellent at home. Their road record wasn't good, and it cost them a playoff spot. Detroit also, in terms of goals for and against, a little closer to the middle here. 3.33 goals for, 3.22 goals against per game. There have been some ugly scores here and there that have definitely caused that to change. Their power play 21.4%, their penalty kill 84%. So their special teams have been strong. Looking at their top scorers, Larkin, 9 games, 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points for Dylan Larkin. Finney, 9 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points for the rookie, who is around a point per game, and I don't know that he stays there. I don't know that we can count on Finney to do that over a full season. It'd be amazing if he did. There have been rookies that have come out of nowhere and done it before. Yeah, I could do a video on something like that. But Finney clearly is a very talented player. DeBrincat, 9 games, 1 goal, 7 assists, 8 points. Raymond, 7 games played, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. And Kane, who's been on the shelf for the last few games, 5 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points for Kane. Looking at their goaltending, it has not been the kind of picture that I figured it would be. So I do think their goaltending can bounce back. It's still very early. And that's the thing. They're already 6-3. Their goaltending hasn't been overwhelmingly good. Talbot's 3-1 with an .890 save percentage. His goals saved above expected, a negative .9. So negative means they've allowed more than expected. For Gibson, he's 3-2 with an .870 save percentage. However, his goals saved above expected is a negative .4. So even though his save percentage is much lower, that means that he's doing better on the high danger chances than Talbot, ever so slightly, although the save percentage wouldn't tell you that. Now, their upcoming schedule also involves a long road trip, and as I mentioned, they're 1-2 away from home, so this could be a big road trip for them. Tuesday, they're at St. Louis. Thursday, they're at Los Angeles. Friday, they're at Anaheim, so the back-to-backs in the LA, Anaheim area there. Then Sunday, November 2nd, they're at San Jose. Tuesday, November 4th, they're at Vegas. So that is 1, 2, 3. That is a 5-game road trip. But 7 of the 8 after that road trip are at home. So if they can navigate that road trip and do well, and the rematch with St. Louis should be excellent, because St. Louis should be all amounts of ticked off about how the last game ended. Now, the PDO for them is not good. 95.54, which is 31st in the NHL. So what I said here about PDO being too high, you can also make the argument PDO can be too low, meaning Detroit should come up. So they should end up being a little better than the 6-3 record they've already put up. Now, their goal differential above expected is also poor. Negative 6.13, which is 30th of the 32 teams in the National Hockey League. For the record, Calgary's 31st and St. Louis is 32nd. So if you felt like Calgary's just had bad luck, there you go. Calgary's had some bad luck. Shooting percentage, save percentage, just not where you'd want it to be. Now, Utah. With Utah, of course, Utah technically hasn't made the playoffs ever, being in their second season. But if you look at where they got the franchise from, the Coyotes last made the playoffs in 2020. And if you're a Coyotes fan, this may not be the video for you, because this is where now the Coyotes would have been a good team, and who knows what might have happened. Utah is 7-2, reaping the benefits of all these young players that Arizona was adding. Smart moves by general managers, and definitely it helps being in Utah and not worrying about the finances as much. This 7-2 start, though, is in contrast with last year where they started 4-1. So it's another instance where a team starts 500 through 9 games. They just don't make the playoffs. Now at home, Utah's perfect, 4-0. On the road, they're 3-2. Road record's fine as long as they are perfect at home. 3.78 goals scored per game, which is the highest of any of the 4 teams. And the 2.44 goals against is the lowest of all 4 teams on the board. So this is a pretty remarkable run that Utah's been on. Their power play at 21.9%, not bad. Their penalty kill needs to be a little better. It's at 75%. So for Utah, their numbers for special teams don't even equal 100% when added together. Schmaltz, ridiculous run by Schmaltz lately. 9 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. I have been very vocal of my fandom for Schmaltz for years. Keller, 9 games, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. Cooley, 9 games, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points for Cooley. Cooley has been red hot himself. Gunther, 9 games, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. And Peterka, over from Buffalo, 9 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Seems to be enjoying things in Salt Lake City. Vejmelka, 6-1 with a .905 save percentage, but a goal saved above expected, 6.1, which is the highest number on the board. Vanacek, 1-1 with an .897 save percentage, clearly purely a backup. 0.5 goal saved above expected in the appearances made by Vanacek. So the goaltending's been good. Their upcoming schedule also features some road games here. So today they're at Winnipeg. It's why I put this board together. I'm like, I have to make this video before the Utah-Winnipeg game gets started, or else I'll have to figure something else out. And then Tuesday, Utah's in Edmonton. So it's a little 2-game road trip here. Then they come home Sunday, November 2nd. So they got some days off before they play again. November 2nd, they're at home against Tampa. Then they go back on the road for 4. Tuesday, November 4th at Buffalo. The next day, they're in Toronto. So those cities are close to one another. Saturday, they're in Montreal. So nice couple of days between the game in Toronto and the game in Montreal. And then the next night, they're in Ottawa. So they've got a couple of back-to-backs there. But when you've got 2 goaltenders who are playing well, the back-to-backs are a little less scary, right? When you have a backup you don't have a lot of faith in, those back-to-backs can be very scary. So 6 of the remaining 10 in November after that's done are at home. So Utah should have a pretty strong record through the end of the month if they perform well in those road games. The same as I've mentioned with Pittsburgh, same as I've mentioned for Detroit. Is interesting how these teams kind of mirror each other. Now the PDO for Utah is 9th in the NHL at 102.37. Their goal differential above expected is 5th in the National Hockey League at 5.43. And those numbers don't necessarily come down as the year goes along. The lucky teams can stay lucky, but it can definitely come down, and it is something to keep an eye on. Which brings me to Seattle. Seattle, they last made the playoffs in 2023. Their sole lone appearance in the playoffs to this point in their team's history. 5-2-2 start to the season as opposed to 4-4-1 last year. So it's amazing that I picked these 4 teams. I'm like, yep, these are the ones that I think are the most surprising. And 3 of the 4 started last season 4-4-1, and all 3 of them missed the playoffs. So if your team's 4-4-1 currently, I'm sorry, looks like you might miss the playoffs. So at home, Seattle's 3-0, which is a strong start for them. On the road, it has not been as strong a start to the season. I'm feeling better, but I still, have little issues, colds hanging on. But on the road, 2-2-2 record for Seattle. So if you're a naysayer, you'll say they only won 2 out of 6 on the road. A positive Pete might say they've only lost 2 in regulation out of 6. Shout out to Simon Miller. But 2.78 goals scored per game is the lowest on the board. They've allowed 2.67 goals against per game. So the offense hasn't been as strong for Seattle as the other teams. Their power play, 19.2%, needs to get better, and their penalty kill is a woeful 69.6%. So I understand that there's people who look at these numbers, they look at Seattle's record and go, I don't think they can stay there. And then you look at their top scorers. You've got Eberle, 9 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. Same totals for Schwartz, 9 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. Then you've got Beniers, 9 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. I think Beniers is having a strong season. Stevenson, 9 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Dunn and Wright, also 9 games, 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. So for Seattle, it really is a matter of it being a team game and everybody pulling in the same direction, and maybe a little bit of luck here and there as well. Decord, 5-1-1, 915 save percentage. Goals saved above expected, 1.5. That's lower than I'd expected it to be, although I know he had like at least one ugly game this year, which probably drags that number down. Murray, 0-1, 909 save percentage in his appearance. However, 0.5 goals saved above expected, which kind of surprises me because he did allow 1 goal in that game that was not fantastic. And then you got Grubauer, 0-1, 897 save percentage. Goals saved above expected, negative 0.4 for Grubauer. So Decord's going to play a lot. And I think one of the question marks with Seattle is, are they going to get a backup goaltender between Murray and Grubauer, who they have that faith in to play him a lot? And to this point, I would say they don't, because they're still carrying 3 goaltenders. And Decord's played 7 out of the 9 games so far. Their upcoming schedule, they're at home for the next 4 games. So 4 games at home for them. And that starts with Tuesday, where they're at home against Montreal. Then on Saturday, they're at home against the Rangers. So they've got a few days off in their schedule there. Monday, November 3rd, they're at home against Chicago. And then Wednesday, November 5th, they're at home against San Jose. This lines up really well. Montreal's playing very well. On the road, at home, doesn't seem to matter. Montreal's playing well. If I didn't have Detroit on the board, we'd be talking about Montreal. But then you have the Rangers, Chicago, and San Jose. The Rangers are better on the road than at home, but they're below NHL 500. Chicago's had a very strong start, but if Seattle's good, that's a team they should beat. That's a game to keep an eye on. And then San Jose, winnable game. Following that, they have 2 away, 3 at home, 4 away, and then 2 at home to round out the month. So it's a busy month, but I like road trips of 3 games, homestands of 3 or 4, couple games here and there. I do think that's a good schedule, and I think that's what players appreciate as well. Their PDO is 4th. It's an even 103. So that's one thing to keep an eye on, is that the PDO is high for them. That is, again, save percentage added to shooting percentage. Their goal differential above expected, 6.45, which is 4th in the NHL. So what's interesting here, too, is I have teams 4th, 5th, and 6th goal differential above expected, which means that if you believe that there's a little bit of luck keeping Seattle up, that might be your smoking gun right there. And if that number starts to come down, Seattle's record could worsen. But like I said, they have some winnable games coming up. This is a 4-game homestand, and they're 3-0 at home. So there is the possibility that Seattle just keeps rolling. And if they just keep rolling, I might be doing another video on Seattle before the month is done, or maybe early next month, because no one expected it. And from what I've seen online, there aren't a lot of people that are respecting it either. I do, and so this video exists. Let me know your thoughts. Which team do you think is most likely to stay in where they are? I would say Utah's probably the most likely, because they're young, yes, but they're very talented, and there's depth. There's depth up front, there's depth on the blue line, and there's good goaltending. And between Pittsburgh and Detroit, my heart says Detroit, my head says Pittsburgh. My head says this is a team where you might have the last hurrah for Malkin, Letang, Crosby, and they're playing like it. Whereas with Detroit, there's still, if there's a way for Detroit to sabotage themselves, they seem to find it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.